We get live right now, man. It's going down. Excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello and welcome to episode 157 of the Brew Hoop podcast. We are back after a lengthy absence because when we last recorded it was before the draft. And honestly, I didn't think they were going to draft anyone, so I just kind of figured I'm going to punt on it. But I am thankfully to be joined by my good friend Riley Feldman. Riley, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Kyle. It feels like there's a voice missing. Now that he's retired, he's rode off into the sunset, and it's gonna be hard replacing Mitchell as the occasional host of the podcast. So I'm doing good. My volleyball team horrible, just horrible. We were one of the worst teams last season. We played last week, got destroyed, and ironically, one of the guys on the other team, he looked like extremely out of shape Pat Connaughton. So I'm gonna chalk up to the fact that I just kept staring at him. I was like. It was like an uncanny valley. It was like, okay, is Pat Connaughton on the rec volleyball team I'm playing against, and did he really let himself go this summer? So I'm going to blame poor performances on that, but otherwise I'm good. Thanks.
All right. And speaking of retiring, yes, we are sad to see Mitchell Maurer, former co-managing editor of Brew Hoop Go. We do, however, have the other former co-editing manager of Brew Hoop. Adam, how's it going?
I'm just thankful to be here. I can't believe you guys wanted me back. It's really gracious of you. What I was thinking of when I was hearing Riley again tell about his volleyball stories, it does sound like even when you lose, failure is but a step on the way to success. Is that kind of the mantra of the team?
Yeah, when the press interviewed me at the rec league court after the fact, I looked really wistful and said, I talked about how Michael Jordan did not win a title every year. And so that means that I can also have bad games and it's not a failure. So I said, yes, I'm aiming to be the Michael Jordan of rec league volleyball in Minneapolis, but I'm not there yet. It's a journey. You're right, Adam.
Well, I'm happy to see it. And I'm happy to be back with you guys on the show.
That is fair. It was kind of funny because before we recorded, it's like, all right, Adam, do you want to host? He's like, no, just didn't even want to bother. He is fully retired. I'm surprised he is here, but we are thankful for it. So let's talk about our favorite thing.
He's back because he's sick. He's got a sickness, and it takes a long time to get it out of your system.
During my daughter's nap yesterday, I caught up on Summer League. That's freaking sick. It's terrible of me.
Well, speaking of Summer League, that did happen a couple weeks ago. The Milwaukee Bucks started really promising. They started 2-0. Things were looking great. MarJon looked like he was going to be the next superstar of the league. And then the Bucks lost the following 3 games after. I don't remember who they lost to. I think the Nets, the Heat, and the Kings. So it is what it is. That's not really, we don't care about wins and losses in Summer League. But we did kind of get a glimpse of some of the young players that Milwaukee has brought in. So MarJon, as we mentioned, he averaged 13.3 points, shot 42 from the field, which seems a lot lower than what I had expected. Granted, he had one terrible game, but his first 2 games were great. Only shot 26% from 3, so not good either. But he shot like 66% from the free throw line, which is an improvement, and also got to the free throw line a lot more. So that was encouraging. Rookie Andre Jackson Jr., he averaged 5.4 points, 6.4 rebounds. He seemed to have a highlight play every single game, so it's encouraging to see his basketball IQ and athletic ability stand out. Khris Livingston averaged 10.6 points, which is a lot higher, 5.8 rebounds. And I think those are really the 3 that we care about the most. Yes, Drew Timme was there. Taco Fall was there. There were a couple guys that were there who might make the G League team. But Riley, what were your thoughts on the exciting Summer League action that happened in Vegas?
My main thought was, has AJ Green really made it to the point that he only has to show up for 2 Summer League games, put in a couple of threes, and then call it? I mean, I guess that's what guaranteed contract money does for you, is you no longer have to stumble with the other dudes. I liked Marjan's aggressiveness. I think that was the big change of last summer league versus this one. Last one, you could see not tentative per se, but trying to understand what his role was going to be. Obviously, rookie, like super hyped up. And this time around, he had no issues at all, like driving to the basket, a lot of like aggressive defense, good transition play. He gets threes up. He seems to still not be a great 3-point shooter, which is really ideally, or like in an ideal world, the only way he's really going to get points, but he's taking them at least. So I think Marjan showed a marginal increase in his capabilities, probably not the leap right away that we were all expecting. You know, Summer League is not, it does not make or break reputations, or it's not the whole picture of what is going to come for these guys. But if you have a great Summer League, it's better than not having a great Summer League. And if you can show a couple of skills, maybe it's not going to be replicable on a night-to-night basis, but you say, okay, now we know you can kind of capably do that. Where do you build from there? So I thought that was promising. Khris Livingston also can't really shoot. I think we knew that though, but a lot of like high energy, high motor, which will get him some minutes, whether I doubt he's going to be in a playoff rotation. I'm just running through the rest. And no, I a shame that Nico Mannion, whose contract situation we have no idea, seemed extremely confused. I wasn't sure if it was like, why is he here? Is he a Warrior? Is he with like the Turkish team? Whatever. A shame that nobody kind of stepped up to make a case like, oh, I could be like a deep point guard option. Like Lindell Wigginton was not great in terms of distribution as a point guard in his 2 games. He didn't play a lot, so I'll give him some slack there. But I was hoping one of these guys would kind of be like, oh, he could be an interesting guard-ish option, but nobody stepped up. So I guess that's the main thing I was, if I was say concerned about, like, oh, could we have found a cheap point guard? We didn't. So at least with this crew, as far as Summer League goes.
Yeah. Adam, you mentioned that you watched Summer League. So what were your thoughts on the Young Bucks?
You know, I thought there wasn't a whole lot of fun takeaways from it. I thought like Andre Jackson Jr. seems interesting. The thing about him that was so strange is, I mean, he never scored at all in college. He can't shoot a lick out of the ball. What did he shoot? I'm surprised he was even at 20% from 3, to be honest.
Granted, that's on 0.2 attempts per game.
Yeah. So it was rough for him. At the same time, there were some moments, and I don't know what sort of configuration this means for his place in the wider Bucks roster and how he would possibly work on a team where they already have one player on the floor all the time who basically can't shoot, in Giannis. But he did make some passes that, you know, were illustrative of why he was picked, I think, that early and what he was doing for UConn as a kind of a nominal point guard, apparently. Like, you could see the vision there, whether it was a skip pass or he would get down below beneath the basket. And because he obviously doesn't have the strength or skill to finish, he's able to do one of the like underhand dish passes out to someone on the perimeter. So I thought there was some intriguing stuff from him, and I'm curious to see how he fits on the big team. But other than that, his offense was just absolutely atrocious. I don't know. The weird thing about Marjan, I'm curious about your take on this, Kyle. So I thought when he was drafted, when I was watching him, I thought, okay, I think this guy will be on the floor because it seems like he can play defense. But I would say to this point, I have not thought his defensive performance has matched up at all with like the skills that I assumed he had coming out of the G League. And I didn't really see anything in this summer league to change that.
Yeah, I think in terms of defense, a lot of it was the idea that he could be a wing defender. And I think a lot of it is still he just hasn't bulked up enough. We'll see how it is this year because he has bulked up a lot in the last year. And we didn't see a lot of that, but also with Adrian Griffin's supposed defensive style, it is going to be a lot more aggressive on ball, a lot more trying to gamble for steals, which is something that maybe Marjan could thrive in. So there is that potential now with this new defensive scheme. I think in Bud's system, it would have been a lot harder to kind of see it, but maybe in Adrian Griffin's, it will be. But I think the thing that really stood out to me was more, I thought he's going to be productive on offense by being kind of an off-ball cutter. And I think that's something he could do. If he can make the cut, get the pass down low, kind of bully his way into drawing a foul, then that is something that's something that I think will be new, that we'll see. In terms of him wanting to be more aggressive, I think that was encouraging. I think that's also just getting the confidence of playing a full NBA season. So I think with MarJon, it was kind of more of a, can you handle taking on more responsibility and kind of being more of that go-to guy? And I think he did pretty well in that aspect. Andre Jackson Jr., again, he's going to make plays. He's going to be a highlight reel. He can't shoot, but that's fine. I just need him to do something, and he can do that. Chris Livingston could be a chaos creator in terms of just on the defense. I think defensively is where I can see him kind of being more of that chaotic force as opposed to offense. And I'm just kind of looking, Nico Mannion did not shoot the 3-ball while he was 1 of 21. I thought he was at least solid, but shit, he did not shoot the ball well. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of guys like Omari Moore and Jazzy and Gortman who I know got like some kind of deal of some type after the summer league. Like there were guys that looked interesting, guys that could at least shoot off the dribble. So that is potential, but I just, the biggest takeaway I got is I don't want to see Taco Fall anymore because he's just not good. I don't care about Taco Fall. If he wasn't so tall, he would be out of the league like for good.
My follow-up question to you guys, since you admittedly paid a lot more attention than I did to Summer League. One, how different does this team look if Jabari is able to make it? Do you think champions? Are we talking, was it, because let's be frank, the offense for pretty much everybody was horrific, and the 3-point shooting, very Bucksian, was horrific. Does Jabari Parker change the fortunes of the Bucks Summer League team?
Potentially.
The Jabari that you remember.
Potentially. I mean, he would shoot the ball. He's got an offensive game, so probably could have at least, I don't remember which Summer League game. It was like the Summer League where Milwaukee just could not shoot a ball. Like it was below like even Milwaukee standards. There was one game. So maybe he could have helped with that game.
Would it have increased would you have tuned into more of Summer League if Jabari? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it would have piqued your interest more.
I think so. And for literally no reason at all, because I know in my heart of hearts that he's just, it's done, it's over. But it just, part of me was like, oh, why not? Everybody loves like a stupid story like that, like, oh, that guy came back, and yeah, sure, at the time everybody was really dogging on him and calling him like the worst human being ever. But you know, now we won a title, so it's all good. Maybe he can come back. I would have loved to have seen that. So I'm trying to think of the last time. The thing that really, and obviously I would never compare any of these players to Giannis. I don't want to do that. But the thing that really sold it for me was yesterday when I was watching, they showed some brief highlights of Giannis's second year, his like only summer league he did. And he had one drive to the basket where he like crossed over, drove past someone and then dunked right on someone right in their face. And I was like, dear God, we have no one even close to doing something like that on this team right now. Like it's hard for these summer league teams, especially when you're picking late. Like we have to invest so much in anyone who the Bucks draft at this point because they've been so bereft of youth for so long that it makes it basically a requirement as a fan to cling to almost anything positive that they show. So that's why it was a little dispiriting to see MarJon fall off so much after those first two games, because I thought it was really cool, like you said, Kyle, to see him get aggressive. But other than that, I mean, it's hard to feel like there was much else to take away. My only other note was that I think the Bucks should hire Drew Timme as a coach for Giannis permanently to help improve him on his push shots around the paint, because if Giannis was able to hit shots like Drew Timme was hitting, I think that would like improve his points per game by quite a bit. So that would be my one note on the team. Is there literally anything more Bucks than every season we're like, if Giannis gets in the gym with Hakeem, then it's going to change everything? Or like, what if we hire Drew Timme to come in as a personal coach for Giannis to really revamp his offensive game? That's the most Milwaukee Bucks like solution to that problem ever.
Look, we're trying. We've tried everything else. Hakeem is not happening. Apparently, it's never going to happen. So we just gotta throw stuff. We're just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks.
My other question I have for you guys, do you hold this against Adrian Griffin in any way? So not obviously the record. Who cares about the record? I don't care at all. Was there anything that you guys noted right away that seemed from like, yeah, again, it's summer league, so God knows, but was there anything you could like, you felt like you could attribute to Adrian Griffin stylistically? Did you learn anything about him as a coach, in your opinion, coming out of summer league?
No,
With all the caveats.
The only thing I could say is it was against the Kings game, and I think the Bucks were down like 12 points or something. It was like fourth quarter, like 4 or 5 minutes left. And they went into this full court press, which just absolutely made the Kings forget how to play basketball. And the Bucks went on a little mini run to the point that they had a chance. They had a final shot to win the game. So it was kind of interesting to see. Like, I don't know how much of this is Adrian Griffin wanted to try and win the game as opposed to, okay, let's just do it because nothing. I don't know. But there was at least something there where I was like, maybe this was him wanting to dial up pressure. So I guess he's not shy of doing that, but I couldn't take too much away from his coach. Like, cool that he was there, I guess. Like, getting a chance to kind of work on that coaching element, and especially with guys like MarJon and Andre Jackson Jr., a chance for them to show him what they can do.
Answer, not a whole hell of a lot. All right, sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, that it is true. Offensively, absolutely nothing. Defensively, really the only thing is, like Kyle said, seems to apply a little more pressure, varies up the looks more often than I think we would have seen from Bud. He was doing zone, he was doing, applying the full court pressure occasionally. I think we're probably due for more open threes than we had last year. Just if the pressure is going to be any indication, and them teams with actual NBA players breaking through a modicum of pressure and then finding an open shooter. But again, who knows? Maybe that looks totally differently, when you have actual Bucks strong defensive players working the geometry of the floor. But hard to take much away from the summer league performance by Adrian Griffin.
Yeah, it was summer league, so it is what it is. But the more important thing was free agency and I guess the draft. So we mentioned Andre Jackson Jr., Khris Livingston being drafted. So we have them on the roster now for the next 4 years. Somehow Khris Livingston got 2 years fully guaranteed despite being the 58th pick, and Andre Jackson got 1. That's the beauty of being a clutch sports athlete. Anyway, the important thing was Khris Middleton came back. Brook Lopez came back. Jay Crowder came back. Robin Lopez returned. Okay. AJ Green is back, and they signed Malik Beasley as well. So the two most important things, Khris and Brook. Khris has a 3-year, $93 million contract. Brook has a 2-year, $48 million contract, which apparently he reneged on the deal with the Rockets, which makes it all funnier. So thanks, Brook. Riley, out of the names I listed or anything, what was the biggest, what stood out to you the most with the players that Brooks brought to the squad during free agency?
I was leading the charge on the Monday Morning Media Roundup every week to see Jay Crowder thrive in a foreign market because he was that bad. I thought it was over. And this guy has 9 lives. What happens? Horrible. Just a horrible performance in the playoffs and for like a good portion of the regular season. And it's his luck that the coach gets fired, and he's like, oh, that coach didn't really like me, so this one. And now he comes back. Okay, great. Bringing Robin Lopez back, come on. That's bait. What that is to me is John Horst putting up some bait on a hook, seeing if I'll take it. I'm not going to take it, but that perturbed me deeply. The Khris Middleton deal seems reasonable. It's so funny in the NBA because things are designed like, okay, if you assemble the right guys, you can pay those guys like $1 gazillion. And then it's also the flip side is you have no choice but to pay these guys $1 gazillion, and you can't do anything with if you don't pay them. So it seems, as far as I've been told, it's a discount. Seems like it's going to average whatever 31 million a year, which is super reasonable for me. I mean, he was set to make 40. I think 31 is a reasonable number. I assume it's a player option in the 3rd year, which he will more than likely pick up or opt out and get another big contract. And the Brook Lopez, I think for where this team is at, even though Brook is aging and he could turn into a dinosaur any second now, any day now, it could just happen. And we could all be there and witness it happening. But until that point, new coach, trying to build a new defensive philosophy. I think it makes sense that Brook comes back. Again, another guy that we would not be able to replace. And it's unfortunate we had to pay him $24 million. But if the Rockets were going to pay him an obscene amount of money as well, I guess I'm glad that we ponied up to keep him, even if that does restrict our ability around the second tax apron. So would I say disappointing? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it's like every free agency with this team. There's only so much we can do. So as much as I could hope, like, oh, we'll get some like exciting guys. I was excited about Malik Beasley, and then I was promptly told he sucks. I'm like, okay, well, great, awesome. I was so confused. I was like, oh, cool. It's like he like actually has played in rotations. And I was like, yeah, he's god awful. I was like, fuck. Seriously? Okay. So yeah, it's fine. It was a fine free agency. Nothing exciting to me.
What about you, Adam?
I'm curious. So Riley, what for you? What's like what would they have done that maybe would have gotten you like mildly excited? Like what are you sort of thinking of when you're thinking about what Horst might be doing with the roster to vary it?
When I'm thinking about the roster, I'm thinking of another podcast host, right? I'm thinking of a guy who spent part of his summer talking about the difficulties and the travails of the Heat series and how it really wasn't on him. Not really. It was like, wow, can you look at Jimmy Butler? He's amazing. Hats off to that guy. I think trading Drew would have been, and that might still happen.
Okay,
Who knows?
okay.
That would have been my big thing. So like, I understand all the components around it. And once you pay Khris and once you pay Brook, your options for filling it out become, so I get all that. It's more so I'm a bit perturbed that we're as of right now, running it back with, and maybe it'll change once other trades go, because we're waiting on James Harden, we're waiting on Dame Lillard, so maybe it'll change up. But my big thing was that both Drew and Khris, for the moment, are back, is what perturbed me most.
Well, what do you think about that, Kyle? I feel like the Drew question is the biggest question that we got our answer to, but I think is still will be a lingering question this season.
I was underwhelmed with all of it, more because I just saw this team get dog walked by the Heat, and now basically what I'm being told is, all right, that was Bud's fault that the team got dog walked the way it did, which, I mean, Bud definitely deserves blame. But if there's a time to try and retool, and I get like you wouldn't have much financially. So like when Khris Middleton announced he was coming back, I was like, okay, whatever. When Brook was announced he was coming back, I was like, all right, fine. Like I was not going to be upset that they were coming back, but I wasn't going to be like jumping up and down. Like Brook, I was slightly more okay with. And then I see Jay Crowder come back. I was like, I really was thinking he was going to be in Tbilisi, and now he's in Milwaukee. So, okay, cool. He's on a vet min, which fine. Could have been someone else's mess, but okay. I don't know why we're bringing Robin Lopez back. It's like, I was like, okay, if we're going to bring Brook back, let's get a younger big man who is athletic. I have been saying all the last
Kyle,
2 years.
there's still one on the market. There's still one on the market. A one Mr. Wood, I believe, is still on the market. Any interest in him?
If he had given me between him and Robin Lopez, I would have taken him, but I'm not.
Okay. Damn.
He's not taking he's not taking 3.2 million. Look, give me something. Okay, we saw what this is like when we brought back Wes and George Hill. It's like we saw what happened. We know what we're gonna get. It's not like we saw what happened with Robin, and now he's older. We didn't need to do this. So I think for me, it was like that. And it's like, we don't have a backup point guard. So we're just going to run with Wendell Wigginton on his 8th 2-way deal and hope for the best. Like, great. Malik Beasley, I mean, I'm whatever. He is a see-ball, shoot ball. And you know what? That's fine. You're coming off the bench. Take all the shots you need to. So I guess I was more underwhelmed. The only thing that made me feel better is Joe Ingles didn't come back. Thank you, Orlando, for giving him $22 million for 2 years. Like, thank you. Very happy about that. Javon Carter got $20 million for 3 years from Chicago, and Wes Matthews went to Atlanta for the vet minimum. For me, I was just underwhelmed because like we need a backup point guard. someone that can like stabilize this clown car offense at times, and maybe it'll be different with Adrian Griffin. But what we're saying is everything was Bud's fault, and we're gonna run with this core for another 2 years, and then we're gonna completely start over.
Okay. I think that is interesting because I have felt, at least from what I've read or listening to other people, I am surprised how much the Bucks seem to have gotten off being destroyed by the Miami Heat. Like I get they went to the Heat went to the finals and did all of that, but the Bucks lost in 5 games, and I know Giannis was hurt, but like that was one of the most embarrassing playoff losses imaginable. It cannot. Oh, I would say it will almost never get worse than what we just experienced in the first round. As a Bucks fan of this Giannis team, like, and so I think from that perspective, it's refreshing to hear both of you be like, why are we running it back with the team that just got destroyed? And now we're starting with a new coach who maybe he'll help, but like it's a first-time head coach. It seems like a lot to chalk up to him to be able to fix everything that was an issue last year.
I agree completely, especially because the coaching search, the closing phases of it were like majorly iffy. People were like, I mean, sure, he made it. He's a finalist, but like, Giannis likes him. It's like, and it was like Drew wasn't at the lunch. And so things were just kind of weird around that too, on top of that. What it is the Milwaukee Bucks remain one of the most forgettable franchises. This has happened like after the Celtics series. We crashed out and people were like, all right, they just moved on. Like, which I guess is a good thing for John Horst because he can just kind of lay back in the cut and just keep bringing dudes back. But yes, I too am confused by the lack of criticism. And, when you go out that bad, I guess there's no amount of like back talking. And also they've fallen short a couple of times now at this point. Maybe you can chalk it like mostly people are going to put a bow tie on the Mike Budenholzer, like, oh, that was just kind of like the nature of that team. And we'll see how it goes from here with the new staff in place. But I agree completely, Adam. It's been very strange that either no talk at all, probably because we just got clowned in the first round. And if there is talk, it's like, yeah, they're bringing them back. Okay, great. And now I'm giving that analysis right now on the Milwaukee Basketball Podcast presented by Brew Hoopers. So I think we're just flying under the radar for reasons that are unbeknownst to me.
I think the other aspect of it is there is so much ire towards Budenholzer because it's particularly in games 4 and 5. Those are games Milwaukee could have won had they just kept their composure, and especially with how game 5 ended. So then it was kind of like, okay, we got to get rid of Budenholzer. Once they did, everyone's like, okay, cool, you did what we asked. We can move on. And it felt like we weren't pointing enough fingers at everyone else. It was kind of like, all right, point the finger at Bud. He's gone. Cool. We're just going to bypass Giannis being absolutely dog awful on the free throw line. We're just going to bypass, like, yes, we want to trade for Drew, but in order for that to happen, someone has to make a deal worth a damn. And maybe John Horst was trying. He's like, I can't get anything of value. All right, fine. But you kind of look at the rest of the team, and this is where the next question I'll ask is, do you see a trade coming? Because right now, they have like 14 guys on contract. That's not including Thanasis, who will probably get one. So is John Horst going to make a trade? And maybe we are waiting for James Harden and Damian Lillard to kind of make their calls first, which will then make that shift. So do you think John Horst will make a trade before the season starts? I'll just ask both of you that.
I think yeah, go ahead, Adam,
right.
you go.
Oh,
you go.
I think so. I think there needs to be a little roster consolidation. I think, like you said, Thanasis is going to get a spot. And I still wonder if they're really going to go into the year with 15 players, and maybe they want to, dump a couple people out and bring someone in. I don't know who that person would be, but I think there's a clear sort of between the, Malik Beasley and Grayson Allen and Bobby Portis is really the guy that I he's fine, but I think we're probably like ready to move past that a little. Now, could he be better under Adrian Griffin where he isn't forced to zone drop all the time? Maybe, but I have some questions about how much he'll last in playoff rounds. He was good against Atlanta, great against Phoenix, but in the highest leverage playoff series the Bucks have had that went down to the wire, he was basically unplayable. So I just don't. I have some questions about his fit still, and I think he's a good player who would be coveted by other teams. I think possibly same with Grayson Allen, who I think gets a bad rap and was actually pretty good in the Heat series by standards based on the Boston series the year before, which admittedly is low. But I think Horst will do a little bit of consolidation. Will it be an amazing trade? I don't know. I don't know if he's, I think based on his track record, it could just be kind of a trade those players, get someone new in. Who knows if they'll move the needle all that much, but I think something will happen before the season starts.
Yeah. I have a depth chart written down, which will be useful in our 8-man rotation exercise in a few minutes. So stay tuned for that, folks. Under the point guard category, I'm not even putting Drew anymore because I'm tired of it. I'm tired. So I literally have nobody there. I have nobody in the point guard spot. Now, Drew will start there, but as we have been shown year after year, Drew is not really. I appreciate Wes Matthews gassing him up as the best point guard, if not maybe the best player of all time. I appreciate Wes saying that consistently in the media, but Drew is not that. So I'm going to move him to shooting guard. And that's a problem. Like no matter how gifted, of an offensive mind Terry Stotts is, and then obviously whatever Adrian Griffin brings, the core component of the team is still going to be 3 guys who are not awesome dribblers or like passers. They have inspired moments and they can create for themselves and they can all score for themselves. But as is currently constructed, I see like one direction for this offense, which is right into another freaking wall, another brick wall. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be Giannis. We've seen it enough now where it's like, okay, each guy gets to take a turn being horrible on the offensive end of the floor. So, and John Horst, I think he said in an interview, he's like, oh, I think, we're pretty confident with our ball handling on the roster. There's like enough guys, all that. Which I mean, yeah, it's enough to get them through the regular season, no doubt. But I think the real question will be, as it has been the past couple of years, is it enough to get through the playoffs? It was enough to get us through one run, barely. But it hasn't been enough to get us through 2 other seasons after that, after we won the title and then went out pretty sadly in both instances. So I too would expect some sort of consolidation. Maybe it is just a simple like Bobby plus somebody to bring in a guard, like an actual point guardy kind of guy. I don't know who that would be, but I would kind of expect that. I don't think we're going to trade Drew. I think we're going to roll with Drew, see what happens, barring something insane. But I think we're going to keep most of, because they want to try and also set up Adrian Griffin to succeed too, and taking away like the lead point guard, one of your big stars, is not going to make it more cohesive for him. At least now there's going to be like a certain floor that they can work off of. So I think it's incentivized to keep Drew for the moment.
Do either of you expect the offense to improve like in the playoffs? No. I just,
yes.
I don't know how that.
Yes,
you do?
actually,
okay.
I
like that.
Okay. First, I don't think there's going to be a trade before the season starts.
Make the AJ Green case. Go for it, Kyle. This is the time.
You know what? That actually was going to be part of my argument. No, I'm just kidding. I don't expect the trade to happen before the season starts. I could see a trade deadline move where Bobby and Grayson or Bobby and Pat or someone in like 2 of those 3 guys get traded around trade deadline. I don't think it's going to happen before the season. Kind of like what you mentioned, Riley. At least have a more cohesive team that at least makes it easier. I do think the offense will get better only because I'm sure Adrian Griffin will try to make them not do a bunch of dumb stuff. Granted, these players still have a tendency of doing dumb things, but with Bud, it was kind of like, whatever, just go do whatever. And it is what it is. And I don't think Adrian Griffin's necessarily going to let that happen as much because he's going to want to figure out what works best for him. He's going to want to kind of prove himself. He's going to try and establish this tier because we knew like year 1, Bud had the system. And then they were trying to make the system work. And it was brand new. So it was like, okay, we're going to try it. And then once it showed there was some success, it was kind of at this point, you could sleepwalk through it. And also because it was very simple and basic. We don't know what it's going to be. So I figured maybe they just won't have a bunch of games where dudes are just chucking up threes for shits and giggles. So I think there'll be some improvement on offense only because I'm sure Adrian Griffin will actually try and coach and pay attention during regular season, as opposed to Bud, where he kind of knew his system would be good enough to get through the regular season, but then come playoff time, that's what I'm wondering. Plus, if he could bring AJ Green off the bench more often and shoot threes, like that's gonna help because no one else on the team could shoot threes on a consistent basis, I guess. Maybe Malik Beasley might just shoot Milwaukee into the games as well as shoot them out of games in the regular season.
Yeah, but I hate that's our solution. I mean, it was like Bryn Forbes, right? Like Bryn Forbes will kind of shoot us into a couple of games. He helped really went a long way to winning us the Heat series 2 seasons ago now. But I hate that like our solution is Malik Beasley might get hot. Now that I know that he sucks, I'm like, well, I don't expect that to happen. Not really, not sustainably.
See, it's because everyone thinks he sucks that he's going to actually be okay. That's my theory now.
The number of seasons we've had with this team, even without Drew, where it was like, oh, well, let's just get like a fifth guy who's like a really good shooter. Or like we just roll through Kyle Korver, Bryn Forbes, Malik Beasley, understandably so because of what the construction is. But that means that like the core, the heart of the offense, which has had moments, but really struggles for the most part in playoffs, like consistently, no matter who the core players are. Like our solution is just to do it again with Malik Beasley this time and see if that gets over this top. And maybe it will be like, if the defense is good enough, you might be able to get through. But I guess I have run out of patience with the belief that we can flip it on defensively at such a high level that it doesn't matter how bad the offense is, which was the presumption in the past. Maybe it won't be now. Maybe Griffin and Stotts have some thoughts, but at its core, the way these guys are, where they are in their career, I'm not expecting Drew to come in and be a completely changed person. He's like entering his mid 30s. He is what he is, like skill set wise. So that's just my main concern is like, no matter how many bells and whistles Griffin tries to put on here, there's really only a couple ways they can play. And so other teams are going to be able to plan around that again, barring a shakeup in the roster. So I expect the offense to be worse. Is it going to be like catastrophic? Not at all, but I do expect it to be not great. Average at best, probably. Like I'd have to go look what we had last season, but
okay. I'm just curious what it's going to be like. The frustrating part is it's going to feel like the whole regular season. I don't know how much we'll be able to even account for that because like they were close to top 5 or top 10 in offense under Bud for many of the years that he was there, and then obviously we know how that cratered in the playoffs, but. I don't know. I'm curious how it's going to be, what Terry Stotts is interested in employing. Like the differences we saw in offense over the years under Bud were very large structural changes. Like I'm moving this person and we're having a player in this spot instead of this spot. And then that is going to be the fulcrum of our offense is going to pivot around something different or whatever. So it'll be curious to see like if they're running more actions, if it seems like they're running more off-ball complex stuff. That's what I'm going to be interested in looking for when the season starts. But I don't know if it'll be any better. But
I'm only going with it can't. Like they might again. We saw Mickey Mouse lackluster. We don't care. So maybe just putting some care could improve it.
I want to know for the record, the team's offensive rating last year is 115.4, which is good for 12th in the league. And they also took the 4th highest number of threes of any team in the league. So
maybe
there is room
threes for a team that wasn't good at that will help.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think sorry, go ahead, Adam. Go.
I'm curious about the ball handling and what they're going to do there. Like you both said, there's very few point guards on the roster now, and in Riley's case, there are 0. So like, and they won't have Joe Ingles. So, assuming some of that ball handling will go back to Khris Middleton and they'll run some stuff with him. I'm a strong Joe Ingles defender. I know they couldn't pay him that much money, but I really wish he would have been back on the team. And whatever you want to say about the guy, he hit threes in the playoffs and scored when other people normally don't. So I will always appreciate that. But
we're also missing Wes getting a wide open 3 look and then dribbling into the paint and then getting stopped and then having to pass out and reset the offense. We're going to be missing that as well.
also going to be missing the Javon Carter pull-up three. That was absolutely not necessary.
Oh God.
Those are big. Those are three big hits to what the offense. I mean, joking aside, yes, Joe Ingles as a creative force, there is no replacement in this batch that came in. There is no replacement. Javon Carter was a heater that I have to assume was going to come down to earth at some point, but for his role, for his very limited role, he was like, it was just fine. He was not creative enough to actually like carry real ball handling duties, but at least he was like out there. So, but I think that has to be pointed out. It's like the reason why you can be glum about it is the creative forces that we had. That one of the big ones, the breath of fresh air, Joe Ingles, is no longer here, and there is no actual replacement in this bunch that we have right now.
All right, so 8-man rotation. Let's do this. Playoff time. It's game 7. You have 8 players. Riley, who are you going to put out there?
Okay, so we'll do. I feel like I'm drove up to the drive-through and I'm leaning out the window, reading off the menu. Like I'll take the starters. I'll take Drew, Grayson, Khris, Giannis, and Brooke. I will take Pat, which gets me to 6. Let's do Malik for 7. Bobby for 8. That'll be my 8-man rotation. I assume that Robin will be borderline unplayable because he's a literal physical match to his brother, without like the shooting. Jay Crowder, he's not fooling me. Even if he fooled John Horse, he's not fooling me. And then Marjan is not going to do enough to be worth throwing out there. I think they'll opt for the Beasley offense and make it work on defense over the Marjan, the idea of Marjan on defense and whatever the hell he does on offense.
All right, Adam.
God, you know, I think what's immediately obvious to me is that this is harder than last year because the options are worse at the end. Like I would have had Wes in my top 8 for most of last year. I know he was much maligned, but like he could play defense and could at least do that, which was a skill that was frankly missing in the Miami series. Okay, so I'm gonna have the starters, but I'm gonna have Giannis, Drew, Khris, Brooke, and Pat as my base 5, and then I'm gonna go Jay Crowder. I'm placing my trust in Jay Crowder, unlike you two. I'm expecting him to do something. And okay, so I'm trying to project out. So I think Marjan's going to be in it, and then, I guess Grayson. That's my 8.
Your 2024 NBA Finals champions, folk, is that list of real mercenary folks out there. We're just,
I mean, it seems more like it's going to be like the championship run where you don't even have 8 players that you could trust in like you might have 6.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right, Kyle, what about you?
All right, so I will take Drew, Khris, Giannis, Brooke. All right, that's simple. I will also take Pat Connaughton because Pat Connaughton, for all his flaws, does show up in the postseason more often than anyone else, which is shocking. I am not putting Jay Crowder in. In fact, Jay Crowder is flying to San Marino during the playoffs. I don't want him anywhere near the team. He can go to San Marino and hang out there. He can go to Cyprus. He can go to Malta. He can go enjoy himself on a nice Mediterranean location. So no, we're not doing that. I forgot who I said already. I've listed 5 players. Okay. We'll throw in Malik Beasley because you don't. I feel like if you're going to bring him in for one reason only, you might as well give it a shot in the postseason. I will put Bobby out there in case Griffin wants to do more switching. Bobby is at least competent enough to do that. And I'm going to actually go with Andre Jackson Jr. just because I feel like he's going to do something that will at least make me go, yeah, let's just give him a chance. It was either him or AJ Green. I feel like at this point, if Malik Beasley's hurt, AJ Green takes his spot, but I'll actually go with Andre Jackson Jr. just more because I think he has enough of a motor and basketball IQ that could potentially be useful in the playoffs. But it is honestly me just throwing a dart and hoping for the best. If Jay Crowder was competent, I would have put him in, but I can't trust him. Like, he might just end up in Gibraltar by February.
Yeah. It's not promising. But so
does Tunisia have a good basketball team? What does Tunisia look like at this time of year?
Here's like the Steelman case, right? The Steelman case is Khris Middleton has finally, they've only done like a 30th operation on his knee. So this is the one that's going to fix him. Giannis, they took a wrench out of his knee, so that'll help him. So he'll be good to go. And Khris is so rejuvenated that he helps up the playmaking and he's able to carry the offense, and the defense is like strong enough. Because the Jimmy Butler situation was really, 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 really bad. Really, 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 really bad. But I still have to hope that in this core, somewhere in here is like that defense that has been so good in previous playoffs that I still think you can drag that out somehow. So I guess it's just like the Bud years, except the Khris will be better than the previous couple of instances on a consistent basis. Giannis does like Giannis things. We should talk about, you have to consider Giannis like, okay, is he going to make more leaps? Or are we kind of like reaching a plateau with him? But even if a plateau is very good. So just like a solid to really good defense with Khris, who is better, and maybe Drew isn't just an absolute zero on offense. Like, I guess that's the Steelman argument. And it won us the title before, so why couldn't it again in the future? And in the state that the Eastern Conference is in, it's not unreasonable to say this is still the core could get you to the finals. Like, I don't want people to listen to this podcast and think I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be like a second round out. I don't think that at all. I think it has the possibility talent-wise to still get to the finals. I just won't be going into this season saying they're a shoe-in or they have nothing to really prove. Because I think after these past two playoff runs, I think everybody has something to prove. Again, I think the benefit of the doubt for me is gone as regards the previous title team. And we have to reprove from zero, essentially, what we're capable of. But we know that there is a floor that's still pretty good with this group. So that would be like the optimist, even if the 8-man rotation isn't like awesome per se.
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of knee operations, Giannis had one over the summer, yet he is named to the Greece preliminary roster for the 2023 FIBA Basketball World Cup. Don't know how that happens. I don't know if they're just putting him on there just to keep the PR in good graces. I don't know. Him and Thanasis are on there. Is Giannis actually going to play in this? Do we think?
I think no. I don't think so. Right? It seems too risky.
The Greek national team coach literally came out. He's like, dude, these dudes from the Milwaukee Bucks org suck. Like, Giannis wants to play, and these guys would be like, no, you can't play. And it's like, what am I supposed to do? So I assume the Bucks staff will be like, that is absolutely not happening. They'll like tackle Giannis before he tries to check into a game. I think he'll be there for spiritual leadership reasons, which is totally fine. But I doubt he's going to play. Though to be fair, he had the knee operation, then went to China, and then started doing like soccer tricks, like dribbling tricks. So the knee looks good, I guess. So maybe he's on a quicker healing timeline than we guess.
Yeah. Unless Adrian Griffin said, you're not playing, I am expecting Giannis to play because this is still Giannis, and very few things will stop him from wanting to play basketball. Now I can see the Bucks calling the coach of Greece and be like, you can only play him 20 minutes. If he plays more than 20 minutes, we will come to your house and break your kneecaps. And I don't give a damn if that is threatening or not. We are going to do it. Suki Hobson is going to poison all of your food. And then at the end of the day, before you go to bed, we are going to make sure that you get alarms going off every hour for the rest of the night. I can see that.
And then in the daytime, Giannis is slinging candy, hand delivery orders or whatever he's working with, like little packages. He's like, don't you guys love candy? I'm like, hey man, you're almost 30. So That's the dichotomy of the Giannis experience everywhere we go. There's the lightness and the darkness all encompassed in him.
I really went dark there. Do we want to talk about the in-season tournament? Do we care about the in-season tournament? Do we think the Bucks will win the in-season tournament?
I'm curious for your perspective, Kyle. I'm not a soccer follower, but I know it's like supposed to be kind of like a lot of soccer leagues have this kind of thing. So I'm curious what you think about it.
I think it's not going to work because the thing with the soccer tournament is that was based on every professional team in the country could play. So when you're thinking of like England and Spain and Germany, like when you're thinking of all these European places or just everywhere else, you're looking at over 100 teams playing in this thing, and it's just a knockout. And that takes the whole freaking season. And for the bigger teams, it allows them to play younger players or guys that maybe aren't an automatic starter, give them a chance to make an impression. So it works there because there's a lot of teams. Plus, it's always cool to see like the little underdog continue to make upsets. But that's not going to work in basketball when it's just the same 30 teams in the NBA that we already see. It doesn't make a difference to me. I think it's whatever. And maybe if there's something that was worth winning, it would be another thing. But I think the champion just gets a trophy, and then there's like a prize pool that'll be allocated to the players if they get far enough. So it's like you're not getting like a perk for the playoffs. You're not getting like a premier draft pick. Like there's no major incentive to winning it besides pride. So I don't think I also don't know how it's going to be incorporated into the schedule because they'll still be played in their home markets, except for the semifinal championship, which is just going to be in Vegas, which I feel like this is just more of a test of will Vegas be caring enough to have an NBA team worth a damn in the future. So I don't love it. I think it's kind of just whatever. And I think it's just another attempt to try and get, TV revenue and stuff like that in the potential that maybe the regular season gets reduced. Then this can make up for that TV revenue for regular season down the road.
I also don't really care. I think it'll be fine. The first year, it's going to be sort of dorky and stupid. And we're going to be like, wow, this is really dumb, especially when we get blown up by the Hornets by 40. And that'll end our run towards the NBA Cup. I think it'll be something that as they work out the kinks over the course of 2 or 3 seasons, assuming that it isn't just like a temporary thing to see if Vegas will support a team. It could be mildly interesting because part of these tournaments, and like I think of like Europa League or Champions League, where it's like teams that are at their highest level or whatever. And are there way you can like have this little extra tournament that starts seeding teams from previous years or whatever? Like I'll see how they develop it. I think it's going to be a non-issue, something nobody really takes note of the first season. And then maybe they'll learn and build it and change it a little bit and might have some interest. But it's not going to fix the fact that watching Milwaukee Bucks basketball on a Tuesday in February is still asking me to watch Milwaukee Bucks basketball on a Tuesday in February against the Pistons or whoever. So we'll see how it goes, but I don't really care.
Yeah, I think the other thing is it would have been cool if they would have just had all the teams, regardless of East and West, like in their groups. Instead, it's just like, so we're just taking the Eastern Conference, dividing that up, and based off of the pools, it's probably going to be the Nets not the Nets, the Celtics out of their group, the Sixers or Cavaliers, and then the Bucks or the Heat, and then whoever finishes second. It just feels like it's kind of like I'm just rewatching the playoffs, but in a worse format.
I think as a Bucks fan, I can't really care about it because it seems it's totally meaningless, and it's hard to. I won't really. It's not going to make me care about games all that much because I only really care about the games in April and May and June. But I think if you're like, I don't know, if your team sucks and you somehow make it to the semifinals, I could then see like some mild appeal for it. But other than that, I don't really see a whole lot that's in it for teams that are in the upper echelon of the league, and we're all just kind of waiting for the playoffs.
Yeah, like if you're the Kings, like I feel like as the Kings would be a team that wants to take this seriously, and I think that would be kind of cool to see that happen. Or maybe if you're the Hawks and you're going to be mired in like the 7th or 8th seed battle, maybe this is like a nice thing to try and play. Like I can see for some teams, like you said, Adam, like teams that are going to probably hover around like the 6 to 10, like 6 to play in game range of the playoff standings, but maybe they have something to play for because it's unlikely that the top teams will actually try as hard. So that could be interesting. I don't know. It just feels like it's interesting how the NBA is trying to become more like European soccer while Major League Soccer is like, yeah, we're just going to make this as American as possible. I don't know. But we don't need to take a break because screw that. Vox ain't paying us. So, Riley, you have the rapid fire section.
I do. I'll probably forget and still like stick some sort of ad break in when I do post-production here. So apologies, listeners, if there's just random audio here. Maybe I'll just do my own ads. Who cares? Okay, rapid fire questions. It's been a minute since we had the full podcast here, so it's going to be just a couple of questions. We'll start with a non-basketball one. The situation is you guys are at the grocery store and you are blissfully alone. It's you, it's your soul, it's your thoughts. It's not your wife and it's not your kids that are there with you. You're at the grocery store. What is your top impulse buy, knowing that nobody's going to be looking over your shoulder or saying, oh, really, we're going to grab that? What's your impulse buy when you're at the grocery store by yourself?
Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
Sour candy. Let's be honest.
Okay, like a Sour Patch Kids, you grab like the Sour Patch Kids, or what? What's
Yeah,
your
or the Haribo Sour Sketty. I really like that. So that's.
Okay.
I would have said like those pretzels that have like the different seasoning. I would normally go with those, but the kids like those, so they'll eat it. So it's like, no, I need to buy something that's just for me that they will not eat. So Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
Oh yeah, Dots Honey Mustard is my other one.
Ooh, yeah.
See, my main issue with Ben & Jerry's is like, okay, if I'm getting an impulse buy, I'm like, I know in my heart that I should be ashamed of whatever it is that I'm buying. So like, if I come home and then I bring it in because I have to put it in the freezer and then my wife sees it, she'll be like, what the hell is this? I'll be like, hard to explain. Whereas other stuff, I might be able to like, stash it somewhere as necessary. Maybe there's a grocery store near work. Maybe I just grab something like that. So that's, for me, the nature of the impulse buy is it has to be able to just like be a part of my stash is all. Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah, that's why I have a freezer in the basement. I put it there.
It's a cemetery of old Ben & Jerry cartons down there.
Honestly, like rarely does Emma go down there, and now that we don't use it to store breast milk, it's like now it's just like a whole freezer that we just have sitting there.
I hope your wife doesn't listen to this podcast. Okay. Big news out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania this past week. Joel Embiid says that he just wants to win a title. God dang it. And it could be in Philadelphia or it could be anywhere else. Adam, how many seasons does Joel Embiid have left as the Sixer until he moves on to greener pastures?
8.
You think he's a lifer? You think he's going to stick around for life?
He's a lot. I mean, the guy is going to stay there and continue to avoid any heat. It's honestly incredible. Like James Harden is doing so much work to avoid anyone criticizing Embiid again. He had like just a little bit, but then James Harden's like, "Hold on, Joel, I got this. Let me throw up
one last assist shield before I get out of here."
Yeah. So yeah, he's just gonna stick around forever, and they're just gonna keep losing. It's gonna be really awesome.
2, because once the Sixers fail this year, James Harden's already gone. Daryl Morey is going to get fired. And then whoever they bring in is going to be like, I don't want to deal with this shit. And Joel Embiid is going to have to, and everyone's going to look at Joel Embiid and be like, yeah, you want to win a title. You don't want to be here. And then the vulture talk's going to happen. I give him 2 years.
I appreciated that the Philadelphia basketball website presented by members of Liberty Ballers, the comments section, like one of the top comments was like, well, at least he's not asking for an MVP trophy yet. I was like, man, people are starting to get sick of this chick too.
Well, he got his MVP now, so everyone's like, okay,
I know.
I gotta win.
He's such a kid. I'm starting to kind of turn the other way now. Like he's so preposterous. And you know what's the worst part about Joel Embiid and the reason why I really loathe him is like if Giannis were to say a quote like that, and he sort of does, but like, and then of course the vulture circle, like Kyle said, but like Embiid will say this and we're like, he's kind of a goof, isn't he? And then just nobody will do anything with that is all. Like it's very frustrating as a Bucks fan that he gets away with this, but oh well. Okay. it's the pop culture event that's shaking and shaping the nation. Barbenheimer, Barbie, Oppenheimer. Kyle asked this in the staff chat, but I will publicize it here so that you guys can answer for the listeners. Barbie or Oppenheimer? Preference between the two. Let's just say you can pick one. Which one are you going for?
If I had, I know mine. I would definitely pick Oppenheimer, but I just found out that it's Barbie. So I found out I'm going to Barbie. So I would personally pick Oppenheimer.
I was like, is this a riddle? I was like,
no,
hold on.
sorry.
What?
I found out that the family's choice is Barbie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would probably, if I had to choose, I was gonna say, if I have to choose which one I want to see first, I'm gonna go with Barbie, just because I know Oppenheimer is going to be a 3-hour, just beat you down mentally and emotionally, and it's just you're gonna walk out questioning life. Barbie might have me questioning life, but at least I can get some fun into it. So I'm gonna choose Barbie, but I cannot do the watch one and then watch the other at the same day. That is insanity.
Kyle, are you saying Oppenheimer gives you like Bucks Nets game 3 sort of vibes or game 2 sort of vibes? Like it's a beatdown.
Look,
it's just
I'm going to walk
watch
out of Oppenheimer the same way and feel the same way I did after game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals in 2021. I'm going to have low hope. I'm going to think it's all over and someone is probably going to be injured.
Okay. Final question. Especially since Adam is back and he finally found a home again. Donte DiVincenzo betting on himself, and it's paying off 4 years, $46.9 million guaranteed with the New York Knicks. Both basketball questions starting with Adam this week, but I just figured he's obviously the former Buck we're happiest for, right? This offseason, making big moves.
Who's the other option?
Wes Matthews having another year, another year of professional basketball.
Joe Ingles making an insane amount of money.
Joe Ingles getting that bag again after just not showing a whole lot on defense. Sorry, go Adam. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's great for him. I couldn't think of a place that was like more well tuned for Donte than Golden State, where he could just do his dumb shittery over and over and like have it still work. And then he also like hit a bunch of threes last year, which was, of course was going to happen. So, you know what? Good on Donte. He's making a lot of money. I'm sure he won't probably live up to what that contract is, but you know what? The guy is like one of the few good draft picks in the last like decade. So more power to him, man. I mean, it's pretty embarrassing when you're looking back on it. So good on him for making the mid-level as one of the best Bucks draft picks of the last decade. So kudos.
He bet on himself and it worked. And I have to applaud it.
I think Thibodeau is going to love him. And that's why he's going there. I mean, you could, if you were to go into a lab with Dr. Tom Thibodeau and say, okay, what elements are you going to have in here? Like the Donte would come out of the other side. It's going to be, ugly offense. It's Julius Randle. It's Donte like not knowing what to do around Julius Randle, and everyone will be like, what the hell is happening here? Dante's going to make the occasional three, crazy transition stuff that's way harder than it needs to be, doing stuff on defense. Like it's, and in front of the Knicks faithful, oh my God, I can't imagine. It's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Sorry, go ahead.
Am I the only one, though, who's thinking, like, well, how come he didn't get injured last year? And how come Malcolm Brogdon didn't get injured more last year? Like, that's got to come home to roost now, right? Like, we've got to have some injuries.
Well, everyone turned on Brogdon, so it was fine.
Okay.
Didn't he get injured, like, late in the season again? Like, didn't that happen to him? He was not... I don't think he was 100% in the playoffs.
Okay. Well, I take it back then. Sorry, Malcolm. Yeah. Sorry. I always forget which of you are the Brogdon defender.
I'm pro Brogdon, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Frankly, nobody wins in that debate. It's just everybody's a loser. That's the real truth behind the Malcolm Brogdon debate. That's all I had for rapid fire this week.
All right. Well, that is all because I have no film review. I know I've watched movies, but I couldn't think of any besides the new Spider-Man one that I can think of. It was really good. 9 out of 10. Go watch it. The end. But yeah, we will be back at some point. probably in a couple months, honestly, unless a big trade happens. But make sure to follow us at brewhoop.com, where we will always have our usual content. You can follow our social media because now we have a staff that is dedicated to putting stuff on social media, especially our YouTube. So we appreciate them for that. Otherwise, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with all your friends. And we will talk to you sometime in the next few months.